Just starting to go live on YouTube. Okay, just to confirm, everybody can hear me and see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, a bit of delay there. Super. Welcome everybody. April, London Excel Meetup. And, you know, for those of you who come often, you'll know that today, in a way, is a little bit different because I believe it's our first online kind of topic on DAX. And we've got Chandeep here to take us through. So, as usual, I'll leave Chandeep to introduce himself if he doesn't mind. But there's details on the Meetup group. I think there's a link there to Chandeep's YouTube channel, so you can find more information about Chandeep if you are not familiar with him already, which I'm sure some of you who are involved in DAX probably are already aware of him. Chandeep's kindly put a link into the chat area. I know Taya's reposted that once or twice. So there's a link to some files which he'll be using, I think, for the session. So feel free to download those now while you can see them in the chat. If you can't, let us know. We'll repost it again. And then you can either follow along or maybe just keep it for after. Because all of this session is being recorded. We're live on YouTube at the moment, and it's all being recorded. So you can always replay it in your own time. You know, if you miss anything while it's live. It's always difficult to follow along live with, say, a large group. So it is recorded. You can always play it back, and the files are here. I just see Taya's put it back in the chat, which is great. First thing I've got to mention today, if you are interested, is that my book, which came out a few months ago, is currently on 20% off. So if you haven't got it already, rush off and get it now. So that's the code to use. And it will only work, I believe, through apress.com. I'll probably put a link into the chat for that when I've got a moment when I finish yapping and Chandeep takes over. But that is that. On to our usual talk about upcoming events. These are the same events from last time, so a lot of you will know about these or have seen them. More events in the works at the moment. But in May, we have my friend Anne coming along to do some talk on the ifs family, you know, your count ifs, your sum ifs, classic Excel functions, some of the best around. I'm a massive fan of sum ifs and count ifs. In fact, I did a webinar on count ifs last month, 2 months ago, myself. So yeah, Anne will be here, which will probably mean there'll be, is Anne here at the moment? I don't think she is, but it'll probably be quite a laugh. She's got a little bit of a humour. She's an Excel trainer, so she knows her stuff. Kindred spirit for me, being that I'm a trainer myself. Yeah, 19th of May on a Wednesday, usual 1800 UK time. 23rd of June, 1800 UK time. We have George Mount come in. He'll be talking about advancing into analytics. So once again, something a little bit different. George has got a book coming out. Either is out or it's coming out. I think it's coming out around June time. And that is pretty much the title of his book. So he'll be doing a kind of little excerpt from that, I guess, and talking about how Excel users especially can kind of get involved with things like R and Python and like other things to do with analytics, you know, critical thinking, stuff that I guess not every Excel user is kind of aware of or dabbled in the past. I think he's going to talk about how can you get started? What's the best way of learning that stuff if you're interested? And Python is definitely something that's kind of moving into the Excel world a little bit more nowadays. Next talk, some of it I've said already, and then I'll hand over to Chandeep, which I know you're waiting for. But just to say again, this session is live on YouTube at the moment, and it's being recorded on YouTube. The link to this YouTube video is in the description of the meetup, so you can find it there now or after.
Just shared it in the chat as well.
Cheers there. And there'll also be a follow-up email with it in as well. So there's no chance of missing it. It's in the meetup thing now, it's in the chat now, and it will be on follow-up email. You will only get the follow-up email if you have RSVP'd through the London Excel Meetup page. So I like to mention that because you don't need to RSVP to attend. You just go and click the link, but you won't get the post meetup email because that gets directed at those who, agree to go kind of thing. So if you're interested in that, the link to YouTube, and I'll share Chandeep's files again through there and that kind of stuff, and links to upcoming events, then make sure you RSVP if you haven't. And that pretty much rounds off my talk, I believe. So if I stop sharing, and Chandeep, if you're ready and willing, if you don't mind, my friend.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Alan, for having me here, first of all. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
I just have one single slide to talk about myself. I don't like slides anyways, so I just have one slide which has my name on it. My video is live. You can take a look at my video on the camera, or you can just take a look at my slide should you want to see a better picture of mine. Hang on a second. You guys can take a look at my screen.
Yeah, absolutely. Can see it.
So quick introduction. My name is Chandeep. I'm not sure how many of you are aware about my blog and my YouTube channel, so I'll anyways reiterate that. I run a YouTube channel in the name of Goodly, and I have a name in the name of Goodly. A lot of people think that my name is Goodly, my pet name is Goodly, my home name is Goodly. None of that is true. A lot of people actually ask me, hey, where did you get that name, Goodly? People confuse that with Google. Did you steal it from them? None of that is true anyways. It's just that I borrowed this name from my parents. My father, actually, he created this logo and the name about 30 years ago when he was starting a business. And then I just took it when I grew up. I said, I'd like to have that, and I'd like to start a business in the name of that. And since then, everything has been Goodly. Like the blog is Goodly, the YouTube channel is Goodly, and that's about it. What I do in terms of work, I, as of now, do a lot of training and consulting work on Excel, Power BI, Power Automate, that sort of stuff. I do trainings for companies. I do consulting work for companies, build Power BI models and that sort of stuff. And with whatever time is left, I just end up devoting that to the YouTube channel or the blog or creating online courses and things like that. Everything that is about me, about my work, you can actually find it on the blog or on the YouTube channel. Feel free to just drop in and just take a look at the work that I have done over there. Now, at the moment, I'm in Dubai. We had a little chit chat with the people who joined in a bit earlier, but for the people who don't know, that I am currently based out in Dubai. I was earlier in 2020, I was in India, and COVID just bored the heck out of me. So I just thought of doing some adventure in my life, and I uprooted everything and I just moved to Dubai. And I'm here now. Yeah, so that's a little story about COVID and my journey to travel to Dubai. Anyways, the more interesting thing that I want to talk about today is DAX. And I'd like to get a quick round of voting from people as to, I just want to understand that how many of you are familiar with Power Pivot or Power BI, and you've done some reasonable amount of work in DAX, built relationships, created tables, calculated columns, measures, that sort of stuff. I'm just going to stop sharing for the moment and just get over to the chat, and maybe just want to understand what is the kind of audience that we have today, and how many of you are familiar with DAX and familiar with Power BI. If I can just have some people in the chat. Okay, limited, working daily with Power BI. Yes, a little bit, intermediate Power BI, very basic, limited.
Bit of a mix, Chandeep, eh?
Yeah. Well, I see most people are getting started with Power BI. I'm sure people have heard of this tool called Power BI. You've started to work with it. I'm sure you already understand what relationships are, and how do you build those relationships, and how do you start writing those sum, count, formulas and things like that. What I am actually going to do in this session is that I want to maybe take 5 minutes to explain that Why is DAX slightly tricky? Although I did a video on that just a few days ago, but I want to talk about that. More importantly, for the people who have been working with DAX and you have been writing your DAX formulas, and what you end up doing is that you go to a site or a blog or some place where you find some code that seems it's going to work for you, and you take that code and you put it into your own model, try to change a few references here and there to your own columns, and doesn't seem to give you the right result. I'm actually going to show you that how can you actually go write some investigative DAX to find out what's going on under the hood, because you can't really take a look at what's going on under the hood unless you kind of fiddle around with DAX and play around with that sort of stuff. So that's the agenda today. First off, let's just say that for the people who have the experience of writing DAX formulas, let me just kind of share my screen and just start really from scratch, and hopefully you'll understand. I'm also going to show you my data that I'm going to work with. There has been a file shared in the chat, so you can actually go take a look at the data. I am actually going to pull up the data on my screen. So it's a really simple transactional data. All that we have is a couple of very simple columns here: transaction ID, date, region, product ID, units, the channel, and the order type, priority or no support order. Every single row in this data is one single transaction. That's what the data means. One transaction of one particular product being sold. Simple data of sales. And it's not a very large data. It's about 1,000 rows of data. And on the second sheet here, we have some product details, the product master, you may call it, or the lookup table, you may call it, which is where I have all the information about the products that I'm selling. So we have the product code, we have the product name, we have the category of the product, and we have the price of the product. And maybe, I'd like to calculate my sales. And if I'm trying to calculate my sales, obviously it's going to be like a units multiplied by the price, and that's how I'm going to calculate sales. But the problem is that the units is in this table and the price is in this particular table. Now, if you had been working with Excel, all that you would have done is written a VLOOKUP function here to get the price from the other table, drag that particular column down to the rest of the cells, and then multiply the price with the units, and hence you would get the sales. And once you have the sales number, you can then pivot it, apply any kind of structural layout to that, solve any kind of problem with sum if countifs, do aggregation on that particular data. Let's just see that how can we do some stuff using Power BI. And I'm going to get fairly sophisticated in this workshop, show you a couple of nuances around DAX and debugging around DAX. My objective is not to show you the basic stuff here, like how do you do lookups and relationships and write measures and stuff. I am going to get fairly deep in DAX. All right. So I've already built the model here. And if you just take a look at the data model that I have created, I have a date table, which is what I'd like to call it as a calendar table. And the calendar table has been linked with my sales table using the date column. You can take a look at it. It's a very standard one-to-many relationship. I do have a products table, which is where the same products that you saw in my Excel, the same columns have been loaded. We have the category, price, product, and the code here. And that has been linked with my sales table using the product ID. Simple one-to-many relationship created. What I have also done is I have also built a measure. Remember that what I told you about total sales was that you would be able to calculate sales once you write a VLOOKUP in your sales table, fetch the price, and then multiply the two, and then you'll be able to write a VLOOKUP. I have already done that, and if I just hop over to my sales table, I have a very simple single measure here called total sales. And if I just open up the code for that, you can see that it's a very, very simple SUMX function here. I'm saying that, hey, go to the sales table. In every single row of the sales table, do a VLOOKUP of the price. Related function is nothing but the VLOOKUP of the price. Multiply that with the units. And you're going to get total sales value. Now, let's just say that I go ahead and I build a simple pivot table. If you don't already know, matrix visualization is the pivot table of Power BI. It's very, very similar to that. So I just create a blank matrix right here. In the matrix, I am going to kind of dump in a few things, maybe just the year, the month here across that, expand that. And I am also going to kind of drop in my total sales numbers right here. So I have year, month, and the total sales presented. Good enough. I am also going to kind of convert that into a tabular layout. or a classic layout. So there is a word that you can search for using the step, and this actually converts into 3 separate columns. So year in one column, month in the other column, and sales in the other column. You just have to turn off the step layout, and it actually does that thing that you are pretty used to of seeing that in Excel. For convenience, I'm also going to increase the font size here, and we'll be working with this pivot table for quite a while now. So let's just make it 15 so that everybody can see that nice and easy. All right, that is the pivot table created. Now, the thing is that although you can see that I have the monthly sales as 1,199, which is close to about $1,200, nowhere in my Power BI model have I actually written the VLOOKUP function to be able to calculate the sales. I just have one single measure. So if you actually go ahead and you want to validate that you're not really convinced with the stuff that I have done, actually I can build a pivot table in Excel. And in this pivot table, I can actually go ahead and I can take my date, put it out into rows, get the quarter off from here. We don't have the price, so we'll have to do a VLOOKUP for the price. Let's just actually do that real quick. So I'm just going to write a VLOOKUP, search for that, search it in this products table. What is that? I don't 1, 2, 3, 4, 4th column, and close that. All right, we have the price. I think I made a mistake somewhere. Searching for units, I should actually search for the product. Where's the product code? Right here. All right, so we have the price. And what I can actually do is take this VLOOKUP and multiply that with the units, and then I have the sales calculated actually. All that I have done is the output of the VLOOKUP is multiplied with the units, and I have the sales. Very standard stuff that you end up doing in your pivot tables and stuff. I'm just going to hit a refresh, and I have the sales here. I'm going to drag the sales right here, and I have the pivot expanded. Let's just expand this pivot table. And you can see that we have the same number that we actually end up seeing in my Power BI, which is about 1,200, and that's what we actually saw in our Power BI as well. The thing is that I had to do a lot of work to be able to get to that number when I was doing that in Excel. But here, with the help of the measure, I have literally have not written any kind of VLOOKUP in my sales table. You can take a look at my sales table is raw, just as the way that I had it in Excel. I just got it right here. And I have just written a measure, which is where I am saying that go to the sales table, apply a lookup, multiply with the units, and I have dragged the measure in the pivot table. The problem that you face in Power BI when you're writing DAX is that you don't have a way to put this DAX code. As of now, this is ridiculously simple code, just 2-3 lines. You don't have a way to put this code through a debugger. And in case this code is not giving you the output as you expected, or worse, if this is actually giving you an error, you don't have to way to debug that. In this little session that we're actually going to do is, I'm actually going to show you a lot of ways where you can write exploratory or investigative DAX. And just try to go inside the hood and see that what exactly is the measure doing. To be able to do that, I need to kind of go and write some measures. And we will actually go take a look at how do you actually do that using the help of variables, iterators, and things like that. So if you are actually writing a lot of DAX and you have dabbled with DAX and you don't seem to kind of find a way to debug your DAX, this is probably going to be very helpful. Anyways, the first thing that I want to talk about today is let's just present ourselves a problem. The problem that I want to solve today is that let's just maybe go ahead and show me the consistent selling products in the last 3 months and what is the sales of those consistent selling products. Products that are there in my sales data that have been consistently selling for the last 3 months, those products I will call this as consistent selling products, right? And what is the sales that I get from these consistent selling products is what I want to find out. I'm going to start to build this problem in Excel. And once I build this problem in Excel, maybe we'll just go and explore that. How do we do that in Power BI? And we will also take a look at that. How do we write the DAX in such a way that we truly understand that what Power BI and DAX is actually doing? So we'll kind of go under the hood, take a look at, validate everything, and then we'll actually form this logic. Let's start. I'm actually going to jump over to my Excel. We have already built in a pivot table. And in the pivot table, what I'm actually going to do is I am actually going to write, for now, let's just get the sales off here. Let's just get the product ID in here. And you can see that we have the year the month here and the product ID here, the year, the month, and the product ID here. Now, these were the products which were actually sold, right? Now, if I had to do this, I literally would have to find out, hey, these are the products that were sold in the month of Feb. How many of these products were actually also there in the month of Jan? So you'd have to do some kind of validation to be able to figure that out. Let's just write a very simple VLOOKUP. This is like the back of the envelope calculations, like a quick test that you're trying to do. So I'm going to write a VLOOKUP. Sorry, I'm going to write a VLOOKUP. I'm going to say, hey, go look up for this particular product. Go look up for this particular product in the previous month's list of the products. Give me the first column and 0 at the end. I'm just going to drag that formula to the rest of the cells. And I find out that there were about how many? 8 odd products here. So 4 plus 4, 8 products that were actually sold in the last month as well. Okay. So as of now, what I have done is I have built a small validation from the current month to the previous month, but my check is for the 3 months. Now I'm going to write another VLOOKUP and move over to the month of March. And I'm just going to write another VLOOKUP and say that, hey, take a look at this product and go search it in the validated list of the last 2 months and go search how many products were common. So I'm just going to write 1, close that bracket, press enter. All of this is absolutely rough work just to help you understand. So drag this formula down. And we now have about 7 odd products that were consistently selling for the first 3 months. They sold in Jan, they sold in Feb, they sold in March. What I want to do is I want to find out what is the sales for only these 7 products, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. How much is the sales? And then once I follow up to the next month, which is the month of April, I want to skip the month of Jan and I want to start doing it for the 3 months, which is Feb, March, and April. And then when I move to May and then the following 3 months, that's what I'd like to do. How do we actually build this up in Power BI? Now, if you take a look at the logic that I have tried to build that in Excel, it's going to be the same very logic that I will try to build that in Power BI as well. I am actually going to find out the list of the products in the month of Jan, in the month of Feb, which is 1 month prior, and the month of March, it's going to be 2 months prior. Note that this exercise that I'm trying to do is only going to be valid or legit in the month of March, because standing in the month of March, then you can take a look at prior 2 months. I mean, you can't really take a look at prior 2 months standing in the month of Jan, obviously. So I would want to take a look at the current month, which is the month of March. I want to take a look at the month of Feb. I want to take a look at the month of Jan, have a list created, and then try to do some sort of reconciliation of that list to find out that how many products are common. And that is the list that I want to kind of find out. Let's just try to build that in DAX. So I'm actually going to write a measure, right click, and I'm just going to say new measure. And let's just call this measure as consistent selling product. All right. How do I build a list of the products that were sold in the current month? I can do something like values function. If you don't know what the values function is doing, values function is like remove duplicates of Power BI. That's what the values function is doing. So all that I can say is that I have a sales table. In that table, I have a product ID column. Why don't you actually remove the duplicates from that column? Simple enough. Unfortunately, the problem is the values function doesn't give you a one row, one cell output. It's not a scalar output that you can get. It's going to give you a table. If you commit to the formula and drag the formula to the pivot table, it's going to give you an error because the values function can't really return you the entire table. You can't really have a table shown up in the pivot table. So what do? I summarize this. Let's just go build a check. I'm just going to say that, hey, at least show me the count of the products. If you can't show me all the products, can you just at least show me the count of the products? Of course, we can take a look at that. I'm just going to wrap this around in the count rows function. Count rows function accepts a table. Values function delivers a table. They match up. All good. Close the bracket. Press enter. And let's just see what do we get. If I just expand this, I am going to get 11 products, 9 products, 10 products, 11 products. Let's just go validate that in the pivot table. Do we really have 11 products in the month of Jan or not? So let's just go take a look. If I just count the number of rows here, this is actually hidden. My screen is hidden. I'm just going to write the count A function and select all of these, close that, close that, press enter. I have 11 right here. So this seems right. If I just write that on the second month of Feb, I am going to get whatever the number it is. It's 9. It's going to be fine. It's going to write. Now, I have successfully found the list of the current month's products, right? Although I'm currently aggregating that, but I don't want to aggregate that as of yet. Let's just convert that into a variable. So I'm just going to say variable, and I'm just going to be like current month product. And let's just delete that. And this is a variable create. Now let's just go ahead and find the previous month's products. So I'm going to declare another variable. I'm just going to call this as previous month's products. And I'm just going to again write the values function, and of the sales table, product ID. This is actually values, not value. Product ID, close that. Now, if I write the values function once again, it again gives me the list of the current months of products, but I do not really want to have the list of the current month's products. I actually want to have the list of the previous month's products. So I want to kind of alter the list and say that do not really do that for the current month, do that for the previous month. I'm going to wrap this around in the calculate table function. Calculate table, first part, give me the table to calculate. I am saying, hey, why don't you actually calculate this particular table? The unique list of products. Go calculate this table. Do not calculate this table for the current month. Do calculate this table for the previous month. And I'm just going to wrap this around in the previous month function. I already have the calendar, which is my date table. So far, so good. Now, once you start to write DAX, which is spilling out in 7, 8, 10 lines, things start to become darker. And you're not really convinced, oh my God, this is really going to work or not. I can't even see the table. If I commit to this formula, it's not going to really show me up the table and things like that. Now, let's just kind of return this, and let me show you some magic around this. So I'm just going to kind of do some count rows here. And I'm just going to do the same thing. Hey, at least give me the count of the number of products that were there in the previous month. At least I can validate that through Excel. Commit to the formula, press enter. Now, what do I get? Against the month of Feb, I get the number 11. That means that if you were looking in the month of Feb, in the previous month, you did have 11 products, and that's what we saw. So if I just take a look at from the month of Feb, if I'm trying to find out the list of the previous months, we did have 11 products. This is absolutely right. The problem is that this table that you have created, which is the list of the products of the previous months, this is a virtual table. This is not a physical table that you can actually open up in your Excel or your data model or take a look at it physically. It's a virtual table that you have created. It will just vanish after you're done with the measure. Sorry about that. Can we actually take a look at what products are we like feeding into this table? Can I literally somehow find a way to be able to look at every single product that gets created in this table? The answer is yes, but using an iterator, using concatenate X. Everybody has heard of something called as a sum X. Sum X, max X, average X, rank X, things like that. All of these measures are pretty good because they actually give you a single scalar value output. Sum X gives you a number, like an aggregation, or max X gives you an aggregation, like the max. What the concatenate X function can do is it can actually deliver you a text and iterate through that table. So I'm going to write something like concatenate X. It simply means that if I have to explain that in English, here is a table. In that table, go in every single row and pick up an item and concatenate all of those items together. Simple stuff. So you can see that concatenate X is asking me for a table. This is just the debugging that I'm doing. I'm not really creating the final measure as of now. It says that, hey, give me a table to go take a look at. I say that, hey, why don't you go take a look at the previous month table? And in the previous month table, I have something called as the product ID. Go take a look at that. The delimiter that I want to kind of give is perhaps, let's say a comma, because multiple products are going to be concatenated. So why don't you separate them out with a comma? Close that bracket, commit to the formula, and let's just see what we get. Now what you have is the very list of the products that were there in the month of Jan appearing against in the month of Feb. You have the very list of the products. Now, if you actually want to go take a look at in your Excel, you can actually do that. So take a look. Do not really consider the current month, which is the month of Feb, because we're taking a look at the previous month. This is actually going to show you the list of the products of the previous month. So take a look at all of this list. We have COM, FRSS, some hair cream, some hair gel, and things like that. We can take a look at all of that. And all of these products are here. Maybe you want to kind of go ahead and you want to kind of order it also the same way. Can I just maybe have it in rows? Like one after the other, like stacked in the rows rather than just piled up together in a single cell. Of course, you can do that. I'm actually going to come here and say that, hey, concatenate X, your delimiter is not going to be a comma, your delimiter is going to be an enter. Unfortunately, I cannot wrap around the enter inside of the double quotes and write, like literally type out an enter. So for that, I'm just using a character, which is 10. 10 simply means enter. Commit to the formula, press enter. And you can see that now at every product, I have like a literal enter pressed, and the next product appears in the next row, and the next product appears in the next row, so on and so forth. You can actually take a look at these products that are there in the month of Jan, which are appearing in the month of Feb against the month of Jan. So if you really wanted to validate, am I capturing the right products or not? You are actually doing that correct. Now, for now, what we've been able to do is that we've been able to find out the list of the month of Feb, but let's just go now find out the list of the month of March. In the month of March, I want to go take a look at previous 2 months. So let's just do that. I'm actually going to come back here and get rid of all of this concatenate X work that I have done. This was just for validation, taking a look at what my measure is doing. Am I kind of building the right measure or not? Anyways, I'm just going to create another variable and call this as previous 2 months. P2M product. All right. I'm going to start again with the calculate table. It's going to be the values function again of the sales table, the product ID column, sure enough. But the filter will not be for the previous month. It will be for the previous 2 months. There is no way or no standard function available to us in DAX, which actually says that, hey, take it to 2 months prior. So we got to create that as a custom filter. I'm going to use the dates between function. And I'm going to say the calendar is my date. My start date is, take a look at the minimum date of the calendar that is in the selection as of now, and push this date to past 3 months, end of 3rd month, and then +1 because you want to come to the start of the month. And then I'm going to say the same thing. Hey, again, E of month of the max calendar date, but this time I'm just going to push it for the past 2 months and no +1, since I'm just trying to move 2 months prior, not 1 month prior. Close that, and I'm just going to good to go. The thing is that if you just did get confused while I was writing the EO month and the E month max and the min functions, we can also go test out these functions individually. So I can actually show you that. I can actually copy this particular stuff and only return this particular output. Let's just return this particular output. That's the benefit of you working with variables. As of now, using this particular formula, what I should actually get is the start of the 2 months prior date. If I commit to the formula, press enter, let's just take a look at what do we get. If I'm actually working in the month of March, I do get the start of January, which is the prior 2 months start of the month, which is actually good. So this formula is working as of now fine. What I'm actually going to do is get rid of that and go ahead and maybe just go test out this particular output. So count rows, previous 2 months, close that, press enter. I could have again done the concatenate X thing to actually physically take a look at the name of the products if I wanted to. And if I go take a look at that, you can see that mistake somewhere, is it? All right, so here this should not be previous month, it should actually be previous 2 months, the variable that I just created. All right, good to go. You can see that against the month of March, I do get to see 11 because that's the data for the month of Jan. So far, so good. I have been able to successfully create these little tables, which are virtual tables, that I will now do a reconciliation between them, and I'll just find out that how many products stand unique, not unique, common between the 3 tables, and I will just actually find the sales of that. Okay, good. So I'm actually going to go ahead and write an intersect function. Intersect simply means that I'm going to give you multiple tables and you just find the common products between the 2 tables. That's what the intersect function means. Intersect function part 1 is the table. You can see that it's asking you for a table. Hey, give me a table to look into. I'm saying, hey, we have a table which is the current month table, and then we have a table which is the previous month table. Take a look at these 2 tables and give me the unique products of this particular table. Not the unique, I keep saying unique, I'm sorry. This is actually the common products between the 2 tables. Now, once you have the intersect, it's actually going to again return you a table, which I can then again loop it around into, again, another intersect. And as you can say that, hey, this is going to be a table. Go take a look at another table, which is going to be the previous 2-month table. Close that, close that. It's again going to give me a table, by the way. It's not going to give me a single value output, right? It's a table. I can again take a look at this table if I'm not really sure. Remember that the number of products that we did receive, which were common, were 7 products, and that should be the output of that particular table. If I commit to that, press enter. If I just go take a look at my output, it's going to be 7 products that are common in the month of March. Common product simply means the products that I've been selling consistently for the last 3 months, Jan, Feb, and March, and we're good to go. If you literally want to take a look at the names of the products, you can actually do that with concatenate X. Again, loop around in the iterator, concatenate X. I'm going to say concatenate X actually asks you for a table as the first input. This entire thing delivers you a table. So far, so good. I am actually going to go ahead. Sorry, I closed the bracket. Okay, so I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to say that in this particular table, I have a product ID column. Go concatenate that. Your delimiter is going to be enter, close that, commit to that, press enter. I am now going to get the concatenated table that actually physically delivers me the names of the 7 products, which is also what I found using a standard VLOOKUP function. Take a look, these are the 7 products. This is also what I found were the common selling products in the month of March. These were the 7 products that I did found it to be matching. So I use a lot of Excel, native Excel understanding that you all have, your lookups, your pivot tables, your sum if countifs, and there are a lot of variables and concatenate X to be able to take a look at what is actually happening under the hood of the DAX engine. For now, I did not wanted to return the names of the products. I actually wanted to return the names, not the names, but actually the sales of the products. What I can actually do is I can actually go ahead and I could say something like calculate. I want to actually calculate total sales, but not really for the entire data set, but only for these list of 7 products that I have. That's all that I actually want to do. Everything I just don't really want it. So calculate total sales. The second part of calculate function is a table. This actually delivers me a table with the list of 7 products, and it will just give me the sales of the 7 products. If I commit to this formula, press enter, what I'm actually going to get is the sales of the 7 products that I had found out. So now, if the entire sales of the month of March was $1,000, about $1,100, the 7 consistent selling products that you had, they gave you $781 of the total. And eventually you will find out that the consistent selling products are doing pretty good, and whatever sales that we get are the sales that we have received from the consistent selling products. All right. What I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to pull up another calculation which is a ranking calculation. A lot of people end up doing a ranking based analysis in their data. And I want to go explore, as to how the rankx function can be debugged using a lot of iterators. So take a look at this. I'm going to make a new pivot table on a new sheet and get rid of the month here, get rid of the consistent selling products here. I'm going to get my name of the product right into my pivot table. All right, and expand the pivot table. Good to go. This is the sales of every single product for the entire year. Excuse me. What I want to do is I would like to rank these products and give a ranking here, and hey, which is the first rank, which is the second rank, which is the third rank, so on and so forth. This is also the measure that a lot of people kind of make the mistake with. People generally know that you have to write a rankx function. So I am actually going to go to my sales table. I am just going to create a new measure, and I am going to write a very simple ranking, call this as product ranking measure. And I'm just going to write something like a rank X. I'm going to say, hey, why don't you go to the products table? In the products table, why don't you find the sales of every single product? There is no value. It's going to be a descending order, and the ranking is going to be densely tied, right? Dense, close that. I write this formula and I commit to the formula, I press enter, and I drag the formula to my pivot table. And I'm expecting that every single product is going to be ranked out, and I'm going to get the rank of the product, that what rank did you have in 2011, what rank did you have in 2012, so on and so forth. The problem is that I get to see the same rank 1 against all the products. Now, although I can give you a theoretical explanation as to why you're getting 1, which is that you're saying that, hey, go in every single row of the products table. But once you go in every single row of the products table, there is a filter that you're applying of the current product. And all that you're doing is finding the sales of the current product, which is this particular number, 1245. So in this particular table, there is only one number that you have, which is 1245. And that individual number eventually is going to be ranked out as 1. Most people are just going to be sufficed with this explanation. Oh, yeah, maybe. Yeah, there's going to be one product. So yeah, maybe what he's saying is true. I want to actually go ahead and explore this table in such a way that you start to see as to what is going under the hood. Take a look. What I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to convert this rankx function into a concatenate_x function. I'm just trying to find out that if I just write the same thing, like go in every single row of the products table, concatenate the sales of the products, and what is it that I actually get? So I'm just going to close the bracket and get rid of all of this stuff. This is related to ranking. I'm just doing concatenation. If I commit to the formula, you can see that what I get is the very number of the sales value of that individual product. That means that once the ranking was performed, it was only performed on the very sales of the product. You did not have a lot of products to go take a look at and compare them against other products and eventually find the ranking. So what I want to do is I want to actually feed not one single sales value. I actually want to feed the entire list of the product sales value. And then I want my DAX to compare all of these products in terms of the sales, then find the best selling product and then give it a rank or whatever. I mean, I want you to kind of rank this sales in this entire list and then give it a rank, whatever, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever that may be. So let's just see how can we actually do that. I'm actually going to come back to my concatenate_x and continue working with concatenate_x. And I'm just going to kind of do an all function here. And I'm going to say, hey, just kind of give me the list of all products and then find total sales of that. If I actually commit to this formula, press enter, I have to actually do some formatting here. So maybe let's just say a unique character and press an enter, press 10. All right, now if you just take a look at this particular thing, you can see that what I've been able to do is against every single product, I have been able to feed a table that does not contain the sales of an individual product, like whatever the sales was. It actually contains the list of all the products, and now the ranking can be done on all these products, and then eventually whatever the rank is of this particular product can be found out and ranked it out nicely. So if I actually go ahead and kind of wrap this around in the rankx function, so I'm just going to say rankx function, all unique character 10, this is all good. No, actually all total sales. There is going to be a value which I miss it out, descending order, and then dense. And I close the bracket, delete all of that stuff, press enter. And now you can see that we get the correct rank of the product, which is 3. It had the entire table, and then it kind of gave you a rank 3. So this is actually what is happening in the ranking of the table. One last, maybe second last example that I want to pick is slightly more tricky, which is where I have to do some allocation based on my budget sales. Okay, so just take a look at that. I am actually going to go to my Excel, and just maybe for 2 minutes, I want to explain you what I'm trying to achieve here. At the start of the year, you sit down with the management and they kind of give you, hey, you know what, we have to do business this year and this is what we're trying to achieve and this is your sales target. They don't really tell you on what day, how much sales do you have to achieve. They just give you an entire target of the entire year. That means in 2011, for this particular product, you are supposed to achieve 35 units of sales. For this particular product, you're supposed to achieve 130 units of sales. Now, if you have the sales or the unit sales of the products given out to you by, let's say, by the units, the problem is that you would not be able to take a look at that sales by the month or by the quarter because it's actually given out to you by the year. right? So if I have to kind of allocate that sales, I need to find some order of allocation. That means that if I literally want to kind of spread out the 130 units of targets to my entire year, I need to find a proportion in which I will give 130 to every single transaction. For simplicity reasons, this could be, I mean, you could do that in various ways. You could actually do that using seasonality, a custom allocation, some percentage that is given to you, something that you decide arbitrarily, or things like that. But for now, let's just say that, hey, this is going to be in the ratio of sales. If I have to explain to you in very simple unitary method term, basic mathematics, all that I'm trying to look for is that, hey, what was the sales of this particular product in the entire year? So let's just go filter for this product. I am actually going to go and copy this. I'm going to go to my sales data and take a look at that. Paste that. 1 second. What is that product? If I just go here, apply a filter, apply the filter right here, say, okay, that's the product, but I'm only taking a look at 2011 and say, okay, sorry, and say, okay, that's the filter that I have. If I just maybe count the number of units that I have, all of the units that I have, how many units do I have? Let's just write, I just have to move this up somewhere here. Okay, how many units do I have? I have 49 units, right? So in the entire year, I had 49 units that I actually sold for that particular product. What I want to do is I want to kind of allocate 35 units to all of these transactions in the ratio of sales. So what I want to do is I want to do something like this. Take the number, which is the units, divide that by the total sales that you have done for the entire year. This actually gives you an allocation percentage, and you actually drag the allocation percentage down to the rest of the cells, and you get the allocation percentage, which eventually is going to tie up for 100%. So if I just do it, drag down, and if I just take a look, you can see that the sum is actually 100%. Now, this is the allocation percentage, which I'm actually going to use to allocate that 35 units to all of these transactions that have happened in my sales table. Right? It's a pretty standard business scenario. A lot of people actually do that. How am I going to do that in DAX? I mean, there are several ways to do that, but how am I going to actually do that in DAX? Let's just do that in DAX. Also, let's just write some investigative DAX so that we are sure about the allocation percentages being absolutely correct. So I'm actually going to hop over to my Power BI. I've already done some legwork to help speed up the work. So if you take a look at this particular budgets table, if I just show you the budgets table, to be able to create a relationship between the budgets and the sales table, I have built a concatenated column. If I want to build a one-to-many relationship, one of the necessities of one-to-many relationship is that you need to have one side on a table, and then you need to have the many side on the other table. How do I create a unique list? All that I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to concatenate the year and the product ID. And if the year and the product ID are concatenated, all that you will get is a unique list of products for every single year. And that's what I have it. I'm going to form the same concatenation in my sales table as well. So in the sales table, if you take a look, concatenate right here, it's going to form the same concatenation in the sales table as well. So year and the product ID has been concatenated, and I have this relationship created. And that is what forms the basis of the relationship between the two tables, the sales and the budgets. Now, I link the budgets table as a lookup table to my sales table because this particular units, whatever 3,500 units that we had, needs to be distributed or allocated to every single row of the sales table. And hence, I have built the relationship. All right, let's actually go and do some work inside of our sales table. In the sales table, all that I want to do is I want to find out that, let's just say that I apply the same filter, which is rep cream, and I apply the filter for 2011. These are the rows that I had received earlier, and the total of all these rows is 49. If I want to find out the percentage, I actually want to take this value 2, and I'd like to multiply this value with 49 to be able to get an allocation percentage. Now that percentage, I will then multiply it with 35 units, and then I will find out of the 35 units, how much is supposed to be given to this particular transaction, right? That's what I want to do. How do I actually do that? I'm actually going to come here and right click, and I'll say that I want to make a new column. Now, before I start doing things, you can see that I am now starting to go a little bit different. I am starting to, I mean, for the people who already know DAX and are aware with the best practices and stuff like that, columns are like frowned upon thing in DAX. But I am just creating this column just to help you understand there are far more efficient ways of optimizing this. Because I want to kind of do that and explain you how the model is working. For now, I'm just creating a column. I want to call this column as the sales denominator. And I want to be able to write a calculation which actually sums up all of these values. So I'm just going to say, hey, calculate. I want you to calculate total sales, which is the measure that I have already created. Actually, let's just do units because I want to split it into units. So I'm just going to say sum of the units. And then I would like to apply two filters. That means I would like to apply the filter for the year of 2011, and I'd like to apply the filter for the product. Because if I apply these two filters, I actually want to calculate all of these rows which are actually falling in these two filters. Rest, no other filter should be applied. Only two filters, year and the product, and that is nothing but my denominator. So I can write something like all except, and in the sales table, I am just trying to remove only allow two filters, which is nothing but the year. I don't have the year, I have the date, but I have created a concatenated field, not the budget, but the sales concatenated fields, which I can actually use. So I can actually use this particular field, which is the concatenated field, which is the year and the product ID, and I have actually created that measure. Now, if I just kind of commit to the formula, I am actually going to get the same value, which is denominator 49, right? This was the same output that I had. If you literally want to go create more columns, you can actually do that. Take the units, divide that by 49, you're going to get that allocation percentage, then you can multiply it with 35 and you can eventually have your output. Let us see if we had to create this into a measure, how could we actually do that? I'm actually going to go over to another page, maybe just copy that, paste right here. To another page, and I am going to create a new measure. And I'm going to call this measure as, oops. Say allocated budget percentage. Okay, so I am actually going to go, come on. I am actually going to go ahead and I'm just going to use the sumX function. And I'm going to say that if you think about it, all that you're trying to do is in every single row, you want to perform a divide operation, take the value of the units divided by the total of that particular year. So I'm going to say that go in every single row of the sales table. In every single row of the sales table, I want you to go pick up the units. I want you to go pick up the units and then divide those units with the total. So I'm just going to write the calculate sum of the units. And I am going to say all except of what? All except of the sales table. And in that, I am just going to kind of provide the concatenated field. This actually delivers me a percentage of the allocation that you're trying to give. If I just drag this measure to my pivot table, let's just see what we get. Now you're getting one simply means 100% allocated. That means all of the sales that you had has been allocated to this particular product, which actually makes sense because you are actually looking at the pivot table of the same granularity that you had it of the budgets. So budgets was also by the year, by the product. You are taking a look at the allocation also by the year, by the product. Obviously, it would kind of make sense. Let's just see how much of the monthly allocation have you received. So if I just kind of bring the month right in to the product and expand this pivot table, you will now find that this, let me just kind of do that in a percentage. You will now find that of the entire 100% of this particular product, 8% was allocated to the month of Jan, depending upon the ratio of the sales. About 8%, again, same percentage because the sales has been the same. All of this has been allocated depending upon the monthly, the annual sales value of the product. The largest was here, 22.45%. If you actually take this particular value, 478, and divide it by this, you will actually going to get that 22% of the value. All right, let's just go and write some more DAX to be able to explore this as to how are we getting this measure correctly. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and write some more DAX to be able to go ahead and build the measure. So what I'm actually going to do is I want to go ahead and explore that how do I get this 8.16%? That's what I want to do. So I'm actually going to go here and I am actually going to say something like concatenate X. So do a concatenate X. And I don't really want to kind of find out the summation. I want to find out the exploration as to how this percentage has been formed. So I am going to say that, hey, the first thing that I want to concatenate is the units that you have. And the second thing that I want to concatenate is the summation that you have. Summation that you have. So I'm going to say something like, in every single row of the sales table, why don't you actually concatenate the units? So I'm just going to say units divided by the units right here. I'm just going to kind of do something like format. We don't really need the format, do we? We just need actually a little bit of concatenation right here. Okay, so concatenate X first part is the name of the table. And the second part of concatenate X is that what exactly are you trying to concatenate, which is my expression. So I am trying to concatenate the units and then they are finally divided by the total. That's what I'm trying to concatenate. Let's say the delimiter is going to be an enter. So unit chart 10. And let's say that's actually fine. That should be sufficient. All right, now if you take a look at the allocation percentage, you will find that 4 divided by 49, which is the very number that was there in the actually we don't really have to take a look at sales, we just have to take a look at the units. So 4 divided by 49 is the percentage allocation of that month. That means in the month of Jan, we just had one transaction for this particular product. The units in that transaction was 4. If I just kind of bring the units in, you will just take a look at that. All right, the number of the units that we had was 4, and then it was divided by 49 to be able to get that percentage allocation. So if I actually go back and take a look at the month of Jan right here, if I just go back and sort this data in the ascending order, you can see that we just have one single transaction for the month of Jan, and we had 4, which is actually divided by 49. But this 49 is not being used. We have written a measure that actually creates this particular calculation. Even if you delete this particular column, it's actually going to be good. This is just for your understanding. So now I can actually explore as to what is actually going inside my formula and how do I get that particular allocation percentage as an output. So in the month of Feb, you had 3 divided by 49 and 1 divided by 49. It actually gave you a percentage, and that's how you kind of write that particular formula, and you can kind of explore the formula, go a little deep dive in the formula and take a look at how that number is being formed using that iterator. There is one last thing that I want to speak about. I think I am almost on time. A lot of times, data tends to be missing from your master tables or lookup tables. I mean, if you've done some Power BI work in the past, and let's just say that I try to create a table. This time I'm going to use a products missing table. There is a table that I have created which is products missing, which is where deliberately I have missed out a few products. So let's just say that I am going ahead and creating a pivot table. Copy that onto the next sheet, paste that right here. Put the month right here. Get rid of that product. Or let's just say product code actually. Expand that and get my total sales in here. You're showing this to someone and suddenly he finds that, hey, what is this blank? What is this blank? Why do we have blank? $174 for nothing and $197 for nothing. What is this blank? Now, sometimes while in the midst of the conversation that you're having with someone to describe the data, it becomes very difficult to explain these blanks, especially when you have a lot of visuals on the screen. I'm not saying always, but most often these blanks appear in your data just because you have missing data inside of your lookup tables or master tables. How do you actually go take a look at what is the missing data real quick? One way is to write a lookup function. So if I actually go ahead and write a lookup function, if I just right click and clear all the filters, I can actually go ahead and I can write a lookup function, which is nothing but my VLOOKUP, and I can go find the product ID, and I can say that, hey, how many product IDs do not match here? It simply means that you sold a product, but that product was not listed in the master database of the products. I mean, you sold a product that you did not have. That's the meaning of that. Right click. I'm going to make a new column, and I'm going to write a very simple lookup function. That's one way of doing it. So I'm just going to write a related function, which is nothing but the lookup of Power BI. And I'm going to say, hey, why don't you look up for the product ID in the missing products table? And that's where I have deliberately have the products missing. So go take a look at that. Every single row, which is actually blank here, are the missing products. And you can actually filter this out, and you can say that here are your blank products, go feed them in your database, make the database complete, and then we can actually go ahead and build the Power BI report. That's one way of doing it, but it actually invokes creating a physical column in the sales table. How do you do it without creating a column? What you can do is a really simple approach. Let me just get rid of everything in the pivot table. I am actually going to pick up the sales product ID or the sales product code, which has been linked with the missing table product ID. So drag that right here. That's the first part, right? So this is from sales table, all right? Then you pick up the product ID of your lookup table and you drag it against this. So where is my missing? And you drag it against this particular product code. And if you just expand that, and you can see that wherever it's a missing, those products have been missing, and there's no need for writing a physical VLOOKUP to be able to do that. These product codes are simply missing, and you can take a snapshot of this, export this data to your Excel or something, and then give it out to somebody, and he can actually take a look at that. You can also apply some filters here to only keep the blanks and remove the rest, and you have actually figured out very quickly as to which are the missing products. You can actually do that to all your master tables and quickly build a check as to which products are missing, and in case we need to fix our master tables to be able to fix all these blank values, and then hopefully the numbers are going to be right. There are instances where the numbers can be blanked out just because you literally do not have the sale value or the number calculating for that, but these blanks are a pretty solid reason as well a lot of times. Okay, that was a good 1 hour run that I had. I'm sure that you've taken a look at the files. If you have any questions, this is a good time to ask the question. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Cheers, Chandeep. Thank you. Cool, Teshin. There was, I think, just one question from earlier that I didn't want to stop you with it because you're kind of in your flow. But it goes back to your first example when you were referring back to the previous months.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you want to pop that formula back up.
Sure.
But the
question was to be able to see the formula once again?
Pretty much. The question was just asking, if I understand it right. So you had like the two intersects,
mm-hmm.
Kind of one nested in the other. It was just asking which column the calculate function was filtering in the intersect. So I think the person probably, I don't know if Guti with a question, I don't know if they want to speak. But I think if we pop the formula back up again, that might be.
I can do that. Yeah.
Enough. Yeah.
If that person is present here, you can actually speak up and you can actually ask me the question yourself. So where is that formula? On page number 1, consistent selling products, right here.
Yeah. Yes, I think it's down here with the calculate. Is that?
Yeah, it is me, Francisco. Hi to everyone.
Sorry.
Yeah, basically my question is, so you do the calculation after you have the measures, total sales, and after you apply the filter, that is basically a table.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get how it's possible that I don't know how it is linking the names of the table of the interset with the filter. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys.
Sure. Maybe I'll just say a few words and let's just see if you understand that or not. I'll go with the basics and let's just go take a look at the relationship between the sales table and the products table. If you take a look at the relationship between the sales table and the products table, we have a one-to-many relationship between the sales table and the products table, right? One-to-many relationship. That means that if I kind of bring any filter from the products table to the sales table, every filter should be able to slice and dice the calculations on the sales table. The total sales measure is nothing but totaling up what has been the sales right here in the sales table. That means that any filter from this particular table should be able to slice and dice my total sales calculation. If that part is clear, I can actually go ahead and explain to you what the formula is actually doing. If you just go back to the formula and take a look at the formula, up until here, if you take a look at all of that, the work that we have done to find out the current month's unique products, the previous month's unique products, and the previous 2 months' unique products, all good. All that I'm trying to do is I'm actually trying to build a list of the unique, so not the unique, I keep saying unique, of the common products between the last 3 months, and that is the list, right? If you remember, I actually also wrap this around in the concatenate X function, and I say that, hey, can I actually take a look at that list? I mean, maybe, and if I say in this particular table, this is nothing but a table, in this particular one column in the table, in this table, all that we have is the product ID. Can I just maybe take a look at what product IDs do I have? So if I just say my delimiter is a unique character 10, which is nothing but an enter, and I commit to the formula, press enter, you will see that I am actually going to physically take a look at the 7 products that I have. Now, these 7 products, which were the consistent selling products in the last 3 months, they actually pass through from the products table. From these products table, they actually pass through and they slice the sales table, the product ID column. And in your sales table, you just have these 7 products remaining. And because you have these 7 products remaining, it actually calculates the sales of those 7 products only. So I hope that actually made sense in terms of tracking that formula down.
Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you very much. Basically, I got confused because I thought that you had to put like product name in this table.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Francisco. Can you see the chat, Chandeep?
I can see a notification of 59 messages. That's all that I can see, but I'm now going to open it.
We'll wait while you read them all. But yeah, lots of comments, which I'm sure you appreciate seeing. Especially from Christian, who says it's one of the best DAX sessions he's attended. How about that?
Okay. There's a lot of questions actually.
Yeah, I think most of the questions, I think, unless I missed one, were answered by others. Apart from that, Francisco one, I believe.
Okay, so I just answer Guti's question. I'm just going to proceed from there on.
Okay, I don't even know what it is. Okay.
Okay, these are just the comments. Okay, recording. Is concatenate X Power BI specific? No, concatenate X is generally available in Power Pivot as well. So you can actually work that in Power Pivot as well. I haven't had the experience of working with analysis services, but I'm sure you wouldn't have that important function missed out of analysis services as well. So just take a look at DAX guide. They have this clean identification of what function is available under what BI tool. So, and you're actually going to take a look at that. So I think concatenate X is going to be available, at least to my knowledge, in Power BI and in Power Pivot as well, for sure.
Refer to the DAX reference.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Just the comments actually. Don't see a presentation, like a question here. And
No,
if
I don't
anybody
think-
has any questions, feel free to jump in and ask me questions. I can't really claim the authenticity of the answers. It's just 10:30 here in Dubai.
Oh, yeah, Shane,
Shane.
feel free.
Yeah, great presentation, Chandeep. I was just wondering if you were to break down maybe for someone starting on DAX, what would be the most important or who are the most useful DAX functions to use to kind of get comfortable with it?
Sure.
Like one or two.
Sure. So the first thing that you need to kind of have under the belt is the relationships. Generally speaking, if you are coming from an Excel background, you are very much familiar with writing VLOOKUP formulas to expand or enrich your data set by adding more columns so that you can make pivot tables on top of that. More lookups, you get more columns, and then your data set expands so that you can apply those columns in some or the other form of aggregation inside of the pivot table. That is the work of relationships. That's the first thing that you have to learn, right? That's part one. Once you have a clear understanding of how the relationships flow actually from the one side of the tables to the many side of the tables, the next thing to learn is how do you actually write some very simple columnar functions. When I say columnar functions, all that I mean to say is that those functions where the input is one column. For example, sum. What does the sum function ask you? It asks you, hey, can you give me a column to take a total of, like one column? Columnar function. Count, columnar function. Distinct count, columnar function. Max, columnar function. The next thing to do is write very simple elementary level columnar functions. That's the second thing to do. After that, you can proceed out with slightly more detailed functions like SumX, which are the iterators. Like if I want to go in every single row and then do something, and then how's it going to be? Then you jump over to the calculate function and understand how the context has to be played around with and things like that. For beginners, I will highly recommend that you pick up the book from Matt Ellington and do the cases step by step. Which is I learned to write DAX, if I'm not mistaken. The book's name is Learn to Write DAX.
He just launched the 3rd edition, Supercharged Power BI, a few days ago.
Okay, great. So in case you wanna maybe grab the newer book over the previous versions, I'm sure he'll put in some nice new content as well relating to Power BI. But Matt has explained a lot of things in a very clear, crystal clear manner as to how do you work around with these things. But that's the general idea that I will give to someone. First, get hold over relationships, then write some columnar functions, then move over to SumX and calculate and context transitions and context altering and all of that kind of stuff. So that's your first. Even if you do these things like relationships, columnar functions, and a bit of SumX here and there, with a little bit of time intelligence, you would have nearly replicated about 80-90% of your Excel work that you tend to do in your Excel. And then you can just do more sophisticated work with Power BI from there on.
Cheers.
Okay.
Cheers, Shane. Christian, did you want to ask a question, mate?
Yeah, the SQL BI guys have a great article on creating a dump filter measure for showing the filter context. Have you ever used that one for debugging or something similar?
Yeah, I remember this was a pretty dated article. I remember reading that as to how. In fact, I also remember reading one article from Matt Ellington where you could use some tooltips to be able to debug the DAX calculations. I haven't really tried them out. I did put my hands onto while I was reading the article, but I haven't really tried them out. These methods that I am actually discussing, these are the mix of things that I have read on Power Pivot Pro's blog, some of my own things, and a lot of concepts that I have just learned it from Phil Seamark, whom I happen to respect a lot in the DAX world. He's absolute
He is
genius
a
when it comes
guru.
to, he's absolute genius when it comes to DAX. And I have played around with a lot of concepts that I'll actually learn from him.
Okay, thanks.
Cool.
No questions, guys?
No, it was mind-blowing. We have to digest it.
Well, that simply means that nobody understood anything.
Well, don't be so harsh.
Or we understood everything and we're just holding out on you.
I have a question. It's not directly related, but maybe you can help. I was looking for the answer and couldn't find it. You entered Unicode 10 for the enter inside the concatenate text. Well, I tried the SQL BI guys formula, and it also has Unicode 10 just to show on different lines different things. And I tried it inside Power Pivot also. Well, Unicode is not supported in Power Pivot.
So sorry about that. Yeah, I'm totally aware of that.
I replaced it with Unichar, but I couldn't find anywhere a line feed or an enter with Unichar. Do you happen to know which is the code for enter in Unichar?
I've actually struggled with the same problem in the past. This was about a year or two ago. And when I was doing some top-in analysis and I wanted to kind of press and enter inside of the code, but I couldn't really find a way to do that. And that problem has still lingered around with me. So if anybody knows out here, you can actually help me and Christian out. But I don't really know a way to kind of commit to an enter inside of the code in Power Pivot.
It took me 3 days to search for the answer and couldn't do it. And then I quit.
One of the very bad approaches that I may just recommend is that if there is a line feed available in Power Query, I'm actually going to load it as a table and then create a fake lookup to be able to go look up that value and insert it manually inside every single row as an enter or something.
I'll have to try that.
Yeah, I haven't tried that. It's 10:30 p.m. I'm just kind of speaking out loud. So just try it and let me know if it works.
Yeah, I will.
This is Mina. Can you hear me?
Hi, Mina.
Hi, thanks for your presentation. I didn't hear the full presentation, but thanks.
Mina, you just have to speak up a bit. Your voice is really faint.
Right. Okay. Yeah, is that better now?
Slightly, yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, I have a maybe not that related question as well. So yeah, when I try to make a calculated field, when I tap on give some criteria, what are the things I want to select, it sometimes shows the field. The Power BI couldn't recognize the field name, but actually, yeah, I can see the field name is there. It's just in one of the tables. So I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have some.
Can you maybe give me one instance of the formula in which you're trying to write the field name?
Yeah, so I try to calculate, for example, in the transaction data, what is the proportion of discounted product from the total sales. So I need to make another column called discounted or not, right?
Are you trying to create a calculated column, or you're trying to create a measure and then trying to refer to a field of that particular table?
Yeah, that happened when I try to make a measure.
You're trying to make a measure. Okay, here is something that I will say. Please take a look at my screen. This is also the common mistake that a lot of people end up making. If you take a look at my data, in this data, I have the channel. Channel simply means that what method did I use to sell my product? Did I do some promotion? Did I hire an affiliate, or was it organic? Like the person came to my shop or just the website and just purchased the product right off the cart. These are the channels. And maybe I'd like to do something for maybe the affiliate people. I want to give them some commission, or I just want to do something or the other. And maybe I want to write an if condition that go check the channel if the channel equals to affiliate or not, right? That's my thing that I want to do.
Yeah.
Now, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and write the if condition, and I want to do it in a measure. So I'm just going to go over to my sales table, right click, and I want to say that I want to write a measure. Let the measure name be check for affiliates. As soon as I start to write the if condition, this is so far so good, and I start to say that, hey, check for the channel, you can see that it doesn't really allow me to write the channel. Although if I write the name of the table and then I start to write the channel, it still doesn't allow me to write the name of the table.
Exactly.
The problem is when you're actually coming from an Excel background, we tend to believe that measure is a cell, it's a row. It's not. If you actually go write your VLOOKUP inside of your data, sorry, not the VLOOKUP, if you write an if condition inside of your data set, Excel has been so convenient to us that we kind of forget that this thing where I will write my if condition is going to be a cell. And cells are going to run parallel to a table. So eventually I will write an if condition in every single cell of the table.
Yeah.
Fair enough? Fair point?
Yeah.
Now,
Okay.
the problem is that when you actually create a measure is not a cell. A measure is not a cell. A measure is not the row of the table. If measure is not the row of the table, you have to artificially induce the measure to consider a table and allow you to go inside of the row of the table. Remember this. So let's just say that I'm just trying to check for affiliates again. And I'm going to write something like SumX. Now, SumX function actually allows me to go inside a particular table. This could be any table. For now, this is sales table. And now if I say that if my channel is equals to affiliate, it lets me write that. The reason why it lets you write that is because that I created an iterator, like go in every single row of the SumX function of the sales table. Because you're now in every single row of the sales table, in every single row of the sales table, like you physically would have been, you're now able to write the refer to a column or write the if condition or whatever that might be. Remember this, that if you try to reference a column, you would not be able to do that because like a measure is not the row of the table. If you want to go and access a particular row of any particular table, you have to like create an iterator or a function that delivers you a table, and then that table you have to go and then pick up the row.
Okay, I see. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And also, if you want to like select certain rows based on the another column, so would you use filter the table, or is there any other better ways to do that?
Can you explain the question?
So, for example, you have shown me the channels, right? Say if we want to calculate how many transactions made through like certain channel, what is the best way to do that?
I think if the filter is pretty standard and a direct filter, I would just do like a calculate function or a count rows function. So something like, I would do something like, I want to say calculate, and I want to say, hey, count the number of rows of the sales table. And I want to say that where the channel is equals to affiliate. Right. So when you count the number of rows of the sales table, I want you to put a condition, and this condition is going to be facilitated when you actually count the number of rows in the sales table. So if you have a very direct condition, you can actually surround that in the calculate function. Remember that calculate function actually accepts the second part as a table. So if you actually go ahead, if I actually go ahead to my sales table and I apply a physical filter and I say that, hey, channel equals to affiliate, it actually delivers me a table. You can see that this is a table. This is a full-fledged table. This table is going to be fed inside your calculate function because the second part of calculate is nothing but a table. And then based on that table, the calculate is going to deliver you the answer.
Yeah, I see. So I don't need to write a command as a filter.
That depends upon how sophisticated is your condition that you're trying to check. And depending upon the condition, we pick up the function that satisfies that condition.
Okay, right, I see. Yeah, just I try like a few like commands in this measure, try to calculate the proportion of the for example, the unit for like discounted price in the total sales. So I used like calculate, sum, and filter and divide. So together, so yeah, for some reason it didn't work out. So I just
try it again, maybe with this approach, and hopefully it should.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Thank you.
Yeah. No worries.
Thanks, Mina.
Okay. We have any more questions here? Any more questions, fellas?
I have one. Could you replicate creating a table, an actual table with the filter function, for example, just for debugging purposes?
Yeah.
So, yeah, normally you could create a table with values or whatever. Could you do it exactly like Mina requested? I don't know, filter sales where channel equals affiliate and see it physically and then delete it.
Yeah, sure. So what you can actually do in Power BI is that you have the ability to make a table. So if you take a look at the tab here, which is actually, let's just go over to the modeling tab. In the modeling tab, you have the ability to make a new measure, you have the ability to make a new column, and you also have the ability to make a new table. Remember that whenever you're trying to make a measure, it should just give you a scalar value. A single scalar simply means a single value. The output of the measure cannot be a full-fledged table, it has to be a single value. A column also has to be a single value, but the table cannot be a single value. It has to be a table that spans itself out into multiple rows and columns that you can actually create it in Power BI using DAX. So let's just go ahead and make a table. So if I just go over to the data tab right here.
Hey, quick question.
Yeah, go
What
ahead.
about quick measure? What kind does that have to be?
Quick measure is the quick fix of not writing DAX.
Oh, okay.
Right. Personally speaking, I haven't used it much. So I have been involved in writing DAX myself for whatever the things that I need. But in case it just solve one or two of your problems, I think it would not be a bad idea to start there and take a look at what the DAX is actually writing itself. And
for lack of better terms, it'd be quicker.
So unless you actually understand what the quick measure is doing and what it is writing, and you conceptually understand that, I think it's going to be not a bad idea to use it.
Okay. Thanks for entertaining the tangent.
Yeah, no worries. So table tools right here, I want to make a new table and I can actually create a table. So let's just say that table for affiliates. Now I can say filter, go filter my sales table. Filter is also an iterator, by the way. So I am saying, hey, go to every single row of the sales table. And I have a condition. The condition is that the channel is equals to affiliate. That should be the condition. Now this condition is going to give you a true and false for every single row. Are you affiliate? True or not? Are you affiliate? True or not? Every row that stands to be a true is going to be kept in the sales table. And if I commit to this formula, I will physically get a table for all the affiliates. That's what Christian meant.
Yeah, you can use it for debugging purposes, exactly like you did. Even your variables inside the code, you can build them separately, take the entire variable calculate table and just build it as a table and see the full table here.
That's right. That's right.
This is the most Power BI London Excel Meetups ever seen. Cool. Feel free with questions, guys. Obviously, you remember the kind of poll at the start, Chandeep, that kind of 80% were kind of newish or kind of dabbled with DAX. So I think it's so I think you should be proud of your presentation. There's a swarm of nice comments. A lot of people are going to watch it back on the replay because also if you move, it's quite fast.
Sure. I've also given you the files actually. So at the start of the session, when everybody was just about to join, I asked Alan a question that Alan, in one of your previous presentations, you did mention that we've not really had DAX as the session in the past, and this is the first time that we're having it. How familiar are people with DAX? And yeah, I was just thinking maybe if I did prepare slightly more complicated. So yeah, I don't know if I did disappoint you or not, but yeah.
No, certainly not. Everyone's the comments kind of prove that. But I think it's good. I think it's important for, especially for those who are new, they're taking what they can from the session, but it's also, kind of eye opener to what's possible. And you've explained everything like exceptional, which I think everybody agrees.
Great. So the problem is that to be able to debug DAX, you need more DAX.
Yeah.
you need more DAX. To be able to find out what's going on, you need to write more DAX to kind of explore it, slice it, dice it, cut it through, and then see that what's going on under the hood.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
All right, fellas, I'm up for any questions. Pretty much alive here, awake.
It's better. Yeah. Echoing what Christian's saying here. Yeah, just knowing what is possible. I think a lot of people, in the post meetup comments, I don't know how many of you have seen, but there was probably 2 or 3 mentions of, it was nice to see the concatenate X, like they were quite seeing that, doing the debugging. Yeah.
I'm actually going to show you a nice example on the screen. I actually created a dashboard on my blog. So if you actually go search for a learning and development dashboard, this is for all the training managers out there who want to kind of track their training data and how are your people doing in terms of training. Are they attending it? Are they missing out and things like that? This was actually created in Power BI. I'm actually going to show you one example of concatenate X. So here on the cost sheet, if I just go over to the cost sheet, if you actually take a look at this entire, it's pretty standard stuff, nothing very sophisticated or complicated here. So you have everything out here. How much did you spend and all that kind of stuff, and how much money did you have in the behavioral programs? How much money did you have in the technical programs? Here is an interesting part. So if you take a look at this part, which says that 5 most expensive programs. So this is the list of the 5 most expensive programs. You have the name of the program, you have the money that you spent, you have the per employee money that you spent per employee, how many did you train, how many did you invite, and what is the total of these 5 programs. Now, this entire visual is nothing but concatenate X. This is nothing but this entire visual is nothing but concatenate X. Well, how this visual is actually going to change is if you actually click on, let's say, band B1, it's actually going to show you that in the band B1, what are the 5 most expensive programs that we have done, what has been the total of that, and the per employee cost and things like that. So concatenate X actually takes the concatenation of the name of the program, the cost of the program, the per employee cost of the program, the number of people trained and things like that for the top 5 programs, and also finds out the total for that. So yeah, it's like a sort of a custom visual that I have created using just a DAX measure, nothing but concatenate X. I'm also going to share a blog post that I wrote on top selling products. I can just search for that. Top selling product. And this is where you will find a lot of breakdown of concatenate X that you can actually play around with. So I'm just going to leave that in the chat, and you can actually, now this is where I've also mentioned, I was playing around in 2018. I also mentioned that I could not find a way to press enter, what Christian asked me, because this was done in Power Pivot. Okay. So this is going to be another interesting thing to take a look at. I am just going to stop the share and open up the chat to share that with you guys. So top product analysis. All right, there you go. Do you know if DAX is going to have any major or minor overhauls in the coming years? You should actually ask somebody who works at Microsoft. I have no clue. I'm prepared to learn if there is an overhaul, but I really have no clue as to if there is going to be an overhaul or not.
But it's all constantly changing, isn't it? It's constantly,
yeah.
Power BI updates minimum once a month.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they just changed the calculate formula.
Yeah, slightly. They just made it slightly easier to handle more.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how hard it is to predict the changes for this sort of stuff.
Well, it hasn't changed much since the start. So whatever you know in Power Pivot and DAX for Power Pivot, it's applicable now. Okay, you have some easy stuff, some syntax sugar, but big parts are not changed.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, the conceptual understanding of the filters and the relationship still remains the same.
And that's the key when you're getting started. Once you've got that's the big obstacle, isn't it? Getting that concept, getting your head around it, especially for Excel people, like you were demonstrating with the if example.
Yeah.
You said it right. Matt's book was an eye opener for me, and also the series that Brian Grant released last year, Elements of DAX, was really good. So that one, it's a must for the beginners.
Yeah, I always recommend Matt's book to everyone who's starting out with DAX. It has exercises. I wouldn't say it would teach you some very sophisticated DAX, but it is actually going to push you towards the journey and make things relatively easy for you to be able to understand as to what's going on. So that way, it's actually a very good book to at least get you working with DAX, to be able to produce meaningful output with DAX.
Yeah, I took a training 2 years ago actually with Matt, and after the supercharged Power BI.
Oh, great!
I said, okay, I think my mother could learn DAX from Matt.
Awesome.
His way of explaining is so good.
Yeah, Matt is pretty good actually.
See the guy that you dumped the book link into the chat?
No,
that Christian, would you have to do that? Do you have the link of the book?
I think he did as well.
I think it is already. I pasted the link and also the Elements of DAX.
Yeah. You put the link to the Mr. Excel site, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, there somewhere.
Actually, Matt is having a webinar
I know
1 p.m. with one of the chapters with variables in DAX, one of the new chapters in the book. So it's a free webinar. I don't know, it's 1 a.m. in Romania. Not sure if I will attend, but it's tonight. Exactly based on this book and the latest release.
Very accommodating of time zones, Christian.
Yeah. Complicated. But, to be honest, last night I was attending Ken's session, which was starting at 3 a.m. here. So slowly changing dimensions with a single click in Power Query.
And you just gotta love how crazy the time zone differences are, for real though.
Well, Matt's over in Australia.
Eric says.
I mean, I'm just saying 3 a.m. That's commitment right there.
Yeah.
Eric, I totally agree with you. DAX is slightly tricky to take a look at in the first place. I mean, because most people actually come from an Excel background to move over to Power BI and they kind of start working with DAX. It does make it a little tricky because you can't really press the F2 key, F9 key, can't really open up the formula evaluator and things like that. It does make it DAX tricky. But believe me, for the kind of work that I have done in the last 3-4 years, especially on the consulting side of it, there are problems with some very, very large data sets that I have been able to solve that look like a nightmare to solve with Excel, just for the fact that the data volume is so large and Excel will just tank with every single sum if function or a sum function or things like that. So both in terms of handling the size of the data, one for sure, and second is the sheer portability of the calculations that you can actually build and the sophistication of the calculation that I can actually build with DAX is absolutely phenomenal. In Excel, you would have to create a lot of this patchy work, hide it, secretly hide that sheet or something so that nobody can able to take a look at that patchy work. In DAX, it's all clean, neat and clean measure that you can write that can do all of your reconciliation, calculations, and a whole lot of stuff in DAX.
I thought you were referring to your group, Christian, but you're not. You're referring to a different group, aren't you? Because your Matt session isn't to the 29th. Oh, you just posted a link. Yeah.
Yeah, Matt is having a session on his own based on the launch of the book.
Okay.
Yeah, there's another one on the 29th of April. Matt is coming and speaking to the Romania Power BI user group, and everybody is invited to cast their votes because he gave us 3 options, and we can choose whatever he wants to talk about.
Oh yeah.
I have a LinkedIn link for this.
Yeah, I just went and checked out your group, so I thought that's what you're referring to, and then I realised it wasn't to the 29th.
Yeah.
Guys, any more questions? Happy to help.
On the 27th of this month, we are having a kind of like an informal meetup group for Excel just to discuss among people. Not a session, but so I just put the link if anybody is interested.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh yeah, the Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I also pasted the link with the form, so just choose what you want to see from Matt.
Links galore.
Thanks again, Chandeep. It was a great session.
Thank you.
For me, it was an eye-opener for many things, and I will replay it.
Take a look at the file that I have given you. The file contains slightly more lines of code with slightly more functionality as compared to what I could have delivered in 1 hour. We would have been way past 1 hour if I had to discuss everything that I had prepared. But I kind of cut it short to give you an idea of the power of concatenate-x and creating these text-based iterators to kind of grab the actual value that is being captured and stuff. But that was a good sense of using concatenate-x to be able to debug. I actually tend to use this a lot to be able to debug my calculations. Yeah, so take a look at the Power BI file as well. So you will find some more applications of the code.
Already downloaded. And looking forward to see a session on Power Query, because this is how I discovered your channel, with Power Query first.
Yeah, so when Alan and I were speaking, we were kind of dabbling between Power Query and DAX, and I maybe kind of stuck to DAX. But yeah, of course, I probably know like a few things in Power Query too. So maybe I can just do another session on Power Query. Like just simple tips and tricks of Power Query, which are beyond the interface.
I think in coming days, Chandeep, we should come for DAX version 2, part 2. So you can continue the journey into some next meetup.
Sure. I'd be happy to.
Guys, I'm just going to close down the YouTube stream. That's still going. Cool. Stop the YouTube stream.